Hampton. Building 245 is yet to be determined. I apologize if you can't see the writing there, but I'll make sure. Well, you're going to send this out, right?
I will.
Okay. Building 246 and Building 96. And there are great opportunities to do something with these buildings. We'll see, Glenn. Yep, we'll see. And then as, you know, I think Dave pointed out earlier, we're going to have some signs. Now, listen, when you go, if you go to a national park, the first thing you see is signs, right? You actually feel like you're in a national park. Well, in 2016-15, we put a comprehensive sign study together. It was completed last year, and now we're in the first phase of install. So sometime early this year, you're going to start to see signs go up. And there are about 3 or 4 phases of these signs. There are about, what, 2,000 or 3,000 signs that we looked at? So this is the very first phase of signs that will go up here at Fort Monroe, and it'll start to feel like a national park. I want the world to know what happened here. We have something very special. When they're talking about the Grand Canyon or the Everglades, I want them to use Fort Monroe in the same language. I'm excited about where we are.
Can we go back to that for just a second? I want to make sure, because I don't want this, if you don't mind.
I do not.
I don't want anybody to not understand the importance of what Terry is pointing out here. The sign study that we did was massive. The two agencies here worked on it together. We had a consultant outside. It's the biggest 3-ring binder I've ever seen in my life. And the number of signs they found, just the sheer volume began to tell you that, wow, we've got a lot of confusing signs out here and we've got to unravel. I mean, just building numbers. Is it a building number? Is it a street address? Or if you're talking to me, I talk by the building use. We've got to get on the same page as to how do we address these buildings and so forth. But at the same time, we've got to direct people. Somebody comes across either one of the roads, which way to the beaches, which way to the Case Spring Museum, which way to the marina. You know, so we've got to capture people as they come on board. The point I wanted to tell you is this: so the next phase was to actually design the signs. As we designed the signs, we fell in love with this blue color. And we just thought, man, these blue colors were really distinctive, and the blue color is just going to be beautiful at Fort Monroe for all these reasons. We started working with our partner, and our partner said, wow, I love the signs. You have to understand the signs though that are going to be on the National Park Service property, you got to be brown. Okay, well that's when you realize that you're in an arrangement with a spouse. And sometimes those of you that have successful spousal relationships, sometimes one person doesn't compromise. And they couldn't compromise. I mean, they have to be brown. It's not his fault. They have to be brown. He doesn't render an opinion. He doesn't have a choice. And so we said, oh, well, what we'll do is this will be great. We'll do the signs on our properties blue, we'll do the signs on their properties brown, and we'll really, and that'll really, you know, and then we started thinking about it and looking at it and we go, wow, that is really going to be ugly. It's really not going to be, it's not going to demonstrate a true partnership, a real one Fort Monroe. So, as in a successful spousal relationship sometimes, you decide the other spouse can't compromise, and so we have to compromise, and so then the issue became, let's just make all the signs brown. And all of a sudden we started realizing we were really tying the property together. No border shot, which was one of the original decisions that Kirsten and the FMA staff talked about early on, was there wouldn't be any border shot, no property lines, no fences. You know, you really feel like you were at a national monument when you were at Fort Monroe. There is one sign, Terry's got 3 monument signs that are going up. I certainly see some pretty significant moments in the National Park Service life when those monument signs get installed, and I bet Terry's going to have some sort of a fun time with that. I bet he is. The entrance wall is very interesting. The entrance wall is undetermined right now at the very beginning. That's on Commonwealth of Virginia property. Right now there are gold letters on there. I'll tell you the world according to Glenn Oder, which, you know, Adrian is taping it, so we'll be on the internet here soon. But so I'm trying to give myself a lot of outs. But those letters, wouldn't it be interesting to do something with those letters? What if those letters could be taken off, and what if we could find a spot in the visitor center? Maybe there's a wall or whatever that those letters could be featured on. Way too early on, because the exhibit designer is going to help us with that. But what if we could find a way to remind people about the military here and the presence and what was on there? But then what do we put on the entrance wall? We were going to put just big, giant Fort Monroe letters up there. It's Fort Monroe. Where are you going? You're going to Fort Monroe. Then the question became, is it Fort Monroe? What if we put Fort Monroe National Monument? And so Terry and I have been working with our staffs, our board of trustees, my board of trustees, the people that I work with, and now we've got some consultants involved. We're trying to figure out what's the best name to put up there. There's a strong reason to make it Fort Monroe. Everybody knows where Fort Monroe is. You're going to Fort Monroe. You arrived at Fort Monroe, and so forth. Wow, there's also a lot of excitement about what if it said Fort Monroe National Monument? What if we could continue to project this national monument image out there? Then you get into, well, we're getting ready to go into the situation where properties are going to be moving into the marketplace. You know, so how does a property that gets consumed, absorbed? Let's use the Chamberlain example. You know, does a long-term lease tenant, is that an incentive to them, or is it an attraction to them? And we don't know the answer to that. So we have smart people that are looking at it. Terry and I are going to come up with a decision on what that entrance wall is going to be. We're really down to these two ideas right now. At least I believe we are. But we've got consultants that we're meeting with now that are going to help us understand the economics of this. What's the marketplace? Either way, we are going to really brand this property as Fort Monroe, and that's what we think people really want to come here and see. They're really not as concerned about who owns what property, whatever. They want to come to Fort Monroe and they want to have a positive visitor experience, and that's what Terry and his team and the FMA team are all about. So I just wanted to really focus on this. We've done a bunch of stuff on paper. We've done a bunch of stuff underground. We've done a bunch of stuff behind, building walls. This is going to be the first thing that takes place out of the landscape, and we want to make sure we get it right. So I just thought I'd interject. Long story. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yes.
Are we ever going to get signs over the interstate highway?
What do you do?
We already have some.
Big one coming east?
Well,
You have brown signs when you exit, but I mean those, like there's signs.
Well,
Yeah, they're
have
relatively new.
yeah, they're relatively.
Yeah, John, do you remember when Secretary Ward worked with Secretary Aubrey Lane, I believe, about a year ago?
Yeah, there's new.
There's right at exit 268
Well, they
on
have
both sides
another
of east westbound, and I believe there's a sign on 664 as you come in, remind
And
people.
there's a sign when you come across the bridge.
Yeah, to cross the, if you came from the modern Merrimack direction, there's a sign there to tell you from Monroe National Monument as well.
Just so I can wrap up and get out of your way.
Yeah.
I think I heard Glenn use the word partnership about 4 times as he was talking to you. And that's really important. Listen, words matter here. When I'm talking to the world about Fort Monroe, I talk about the partnerships that have been established. All of you in this room, I've had conversations with one-on-one. You are doing amazing work. It's just not Glenn and me doing this. It's all of us. And I love the fact that you show up and you participate and you challenge us. This is what it's about. The sausage making process is this part, but we're going to get there, and I like it. Quarters number 1. I'm sorry. Let me go back to this. The signs will go up, but one of the things I needed to do was introduce myself to the tribe. So on December 20th, I sent a letter out saying, "Hey, I'm the superintendent here. If you ever need anything, call me." Then I followed up in January with a letter highlighting where the signs will go. If we find anything, this is what we're going to do. And I have been getting nothing but positive responses, emails and letters from them. And I'm just happy that that relationship is off on a good start. And, I think that speaks well of all of us. Quarters number 1 update. The Hayes team have been doing an amazing job over there. On your way out today, just stop by and look at some of the work. I apologize for the lighting, but if you can look here, this is what it used to look like. But then you look here, they've actually redone this piece, and it looks fantastic. Oh, that's
good.
That's great. We've obviously found termites in there, and they've cleaned all that stuff up. To me, I love this because I remember this is what it used to look like. And you can see some of the detail work that Steve was working on. Great stuff. Now think about this. This Haste team, they're a small team of people in the National Park Service. Of the 5 groups that manage 417 units, we're one of the teams that's based. They're based right here at Fort Monroe. So we have their attention at all times. And we have building 245 that I've converted into a workshop for them. So it used to be like a dog kennel or something in there, but they cleaned it out. You can, if you ever want a tour of it, I'll be glad to show you. It's amazing what they've done inside that building. The South Chimney, take a look at this. I saw them actually take this down. No, actually it's this. This was the one that was damaged. They brought it down to the ground and then they put it back up. And if you look here, the building is sort of slanted. They've sort of straightened this out right here. And I've reached somewhere around $600,000 in work so far. That's awesome. Here's the South Wing porch. It's a great example of conservation at work. Kudos to those who are in that field. Thank you. And then to close it out, I think somebody mentioned Area 4, Dog Beach area. As Jeff pointed out, we are absolutely working in a good direction to get this thing fixed and open this up in the next couple of years. So I'm very happy with all the relationships that are happening in this space. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Terry, one of your, you're talking about your work on quarters 1, but the actual biggest structures you have of Endicott batteries, especially Anderson Ruggles.
Yes.
And one of the things that deteriorate the most is vegetation. Do you have any plans to try to control the vegetation that gets into the roots and breaks up the concrete and so forth?
Yeah, the short answer is no. The long answer is it's on my radar screen, and I plan on bringing in some conservation youth groups to clean that up. I know you have a conference next year. My goal is to kind of work with you through that because I simply don't know what to do. I know we need to clean the vegetation up, and it's on my radar screen, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Certainly, you know, the Park Service has several of these batteries, and your technical groups have done some great studies, and I can send them on to you what the standards are to keep vegetation on.
When I had a conversation with Moss, Moss is
Up in Fredericksburg?
yeah. He's like, what's that program he's a part of?
I don't know.
There's a group of people in the Park Service that all they do is focus on conservation work aside from the Haste team.
Right.
I can call them, but they've called me to say they're interested in getting the Endicott batteries up to standard, but we're talking millions and millions of dollars. So, at least they're making that phone call. It's a good place to start.
Well, I'm meeting with them next month, so I'll talk to them.
Okay, very good. Yes, sir.
Just a comment on the Fort Monroe National Monument sign on the front. We're very excited about that and excited that the FMA would seriously consider doing that. I think it's critical to the One Fort Monroe concept.
Yes.
And also, I think that if you didn't put it there, then you would have to fall back to putting it somewhere else, which creates that boundary idea, which Kirsten and the FMA agreed not to do. So it's almost, if it's the worst place to put it, I mean, if it's the least worst place to put it, if you want to think of it that way. And also, as to the concern that developers or future residents would be confused by it, I think they're all smart people and they can be educated to understand that there is some state land and some federal land, even though the monument sign is at the front gate. So I don't think that's ultimately a real problem.
Said it best.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have two things. First of all, on the sign, it could be four big letters, Fort Monroe, then underneath it in smaller letters, a national monument.
Yeah,
So you hit both.
yeah, the one sign actually had it that way.
You can't see from here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a,
They're right here.
Oh, there it
It's
is.
It
underneath.
says National One.
Oh, okay.
It says national.
Yeah.
And your second point?
My second thing is quarter 17. Originally, through this process.
Do you mean building 17 or quarters number 1?
Quarter 17.
Okay,
Roughly,
Yep.
where your office is.
understood.
Originally, during all of this grant process and everything that we went through, quarter 17 was supposed to later be redone and open to the public. And which quarters 1 would be done first, and then I don't know whether you do quarters 50 or quarter 17, but we haven't heard anything about that.
Well, I have no plans to open it up to the public because it's my office.
Yeah, but according to all our, what went on ever since we started, yeah, ever since we started BRAC and everything, was at quarter 17, when it was taken over by you, that was one of the things that was going to be eventually open for the public.
Yeah, I'm sensitive to the public. You couldn't ask for a better person to be sensitive. The one thing about what happened before I got here, we have to be very careful about how we use that out in the public, right? You know, somebody from my department or some other department may have told you what the future would look like. Things change, new administrations come in, new superintendents show up, they change their direction. In this case, I don't have any intent on opening that up to the public because we have sensitive documents in that building. We wouldn't want to open it up to the
So
public.
who do
How?
we start campaigning to?
You could, you,
I mean,
I think what she's saying is that
not
you would
now,
move to a different building where your office would be, and that would be
exactly.
brought to
Oh, I see.
standards and
See,
then-
I'm
For me
not
to move
asking
the-
you
oh,
to
I
open
see.
your office, I'm saying that originally the 3 buildings that you originally took over within the mode,
right.
or the 4, were supposed to be redone and open to the public. Now, that was the original discussion and everything,
Right.
and we haven't heard anything about it. And we know it's not going to be right now, because quarters 1 needed to be redone.
Right.
It was in the worst shape, and it's something that people want to see, but at the same time, quarter 17 was another one that was supposed to be done.
Well, I haven't seen any documentation that charges me to do that.
Well, you wouldn't have the money right now to do it, but that was supposed to be in the future. So is there?
You're more than, you know, you can write our regional director, and I can get you that email. I'm more than happy to lobby that. You can write and call and make those suggestions. I'm sure they're welcome there.
Is there a marker there identifying that building?
Yes, there is.
There is, and there's
Yeah,
future
yeah.
signage coming.
It's been there for years.
Yes.
Is there a document there, so?
I don't know, but this was the original.
No, there's no documents.
That's.
There should be a document.
There's no
The
document.
original PA
It's
agreement
critical.
should include.
The original.
Well, the original PA
Problematic
doesn't
agreement.
specify the use for the Park Service that will have of it. It was identified as being individually eligible, and it has been listed individually. But as far as what the Park Service's plans were, at the time, we didn't know the Park Service was coming in.
Right.
And also, there was nothing that was prescribed usage for the buildings in the PA. It may have been discussed internally within the Park Service, because I thought initially, I think initially that quarters 1 was going to be the headquarters.
Right.
But that's, as far as I think we're concerned, that's a Park Service decision.
Yeah.
As far as what they choose to.
It really, you know, a lot of those decisions lean on the superintendent, you know, to make those decisions.
That's
And
why.
I have no desire to move out of there at this point.
It seems kind of amorphous, and you're suggesting that it is, but it wasn't really clear that it was going to be, as it's perceived maybe. I mean, I don't want to get contentious at all, but I'm just wondering, in a sense, it's already open to the public, we have so many meetings there.
I think what she's talking about,
I think it's a matter of interpretation.
I suppose.
As interpretation.
I think there's opportunities for interpretation, but we have signs out in front of the building already. But I would never turn a visitor away if I have time, if they want to come in, you know.
And I
as a
had
guide.
asked your one employee at the last meeting.
Aaron?
Yeah, I had asked him if we could have a group come, you know, well, we're the United Daughters of the Confederacy, even though that was the U.S. Army, we're still interested in that part of history,
Mhm.
and he had said no. To my knowledge, that was our discussion.
Well, you're more than welcome to tour that building. You're always welcome to email me. I'm not sure why you would say no. He's not here to defend himself.
Well, that was my recall on the conversation.
Well, I want to make it clear, you're always welcome. And if you have a group that you want to bring through, if I have time, I will absolutely allow
Well,
access.
we would ask you ahead of time,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, you're always welcome.
okay, thank you.
Well, I do hear what she's saying. I do think there may be no documents, but it's obvious that the reason why the Park Service took that among the very few buildings they took at Fort Monroe was because Lee resided there when he was a young officer.
You did.
Not because they were looking for a place for an office, but anyway.
I mean, I think it's probably because it was in the best condition.
You guys would know better than me.
No, that's not what I heard.
Because of all the work that needed to be done.
Hey, you know, you never know what happens to these buildings 20 years down the road. You never know. I may need more office space. I may want a room with a view of the ocean.
You may get a second staff member.
Get a second step. All right, any other questions? Thank you so much.